Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Here we go, Barflies. Welcome to the Barfly Tailgate Show. You already know it's done by Barflies for Barflies and all the other Bears fans out there. As you can see, we're a little short-handed today. Bobby Bonds got the call late last night that his wife had set him up with a boat date this morning because the Bears don't play today, so she did not expect him to have a show. So shout out to Bobby out there on the boat living his best life, taking advantage of the end of summer before it all ends. I texted KB. I don't know if he worked last night or what he's got going on. He might join us later. If he does, I'll add him in. But it's the AC show today, and I'm chilling here. We'll do our introductions, and then we'll get into these cuts and talk about these waiver claims and stuff. So first and foremost, we're going to go across the pond to my man C-Dub, Chris Watts. What's going on, brother? How was your week?
How you doing, mate? Yeah, the week of the usual ducking and diving. You know me, just try to survive through the week. But no, everything's good over here, mate. Even better about the Wildcats won yesterday, so go Cats. And it's always a joy to spend a Sunday afternoon chatting to you boys and telling you. So, yeah, happy to be here, mate. And it's always good to talk Bears football with you boys.
Yeah, for sure. So this week's show is going to be probably a little short. We're just going to talk about some of these roster moves that we made. What's going on out west, Jordan? How's your day going, brother? What's up?
Good morning, AC. Good morning, C-Dub. As always, love hanging out with you fellas. 7:04 in the morning here, West Coast, Best Coast. I don't know. It feels like West Coast, Worst Coast. Feel like a real wanker for being up this early.
Hey.
But no, always excited.
You're not a wanker, mate. Don't worry.
No, I'll tell you what, C-Dub. I assure you we're going to have a wanker coming in chat at some point today. So we'll notify when we see him. But yes, I'm excited as always to talk Bears football with you all. And we're missing Bobby Bonds today. We're missing KB. But this is just like the old days where over the offseason where Bobby wasn't around, KB's at the firehouse. We're going to tape this together with duct tape, toothpicks, straws. We'll make it work.
Yep. Definitely got plenty of duct tape around here in Kentucky. They say if you can't duck it, then fuck it. Oh shit!
Every week we have a drop. That just makes me laugh.
That's brilliant. We can't duck it, fuck it. I've got to remember that one, AC. That's class.
So we should probably get on track a little bit here. The Bears made some roster moves this week. We trimmed our roster down to 53 men. We ended up making the most waiver claims in the entire league. I would say that the largest one or most notable one, only because of where he was drafted at, is probably Alex Leatherwood, the former Alabama offensive tackle, Bednark Award winner, I believe. Isn't that the offensive line, or am I just messed that one up?
Bednarik
Outland
is
Trophy.
the linebacker.
Yeah,
Is
Outland
it
Trophy, right?
Outlander or Outlander? Now I'm talking about cars. Outland Trophy.
So, or award-winning offensive tackle in college. He was drafted highly by the Raiders, 17 overall, only 6 picks after Justin Fields was picked. And it seemed he struggled last year. And then this year in their preseason, I don't know if he just wasn't a fit for Josh McDaniels' new system out there or what, but they decided to cut ties with the former first-round pick. And we picked him up because he at least has potential. And I want to hear your intake on this, Jordan, because I know you love your O-line. I follow the SEC more than any other conference, so I knew of Leatherwood. I thought he was a little overdrafted for what his skill set was in the league. But what's your intake on this? What's your idea on this, I guess?
I mean, we know he's no Luke Fortner or Darius Kennard or just messing around, but Alex Leatherwood to me is a great example of a player that unfortunately is more of a victim of the circumstances, and I wish that more individuals understood the context surrounding him. And the reason I say that is the kid doesn't choose where he's drafted, and it's a little bit of a conspiracy or a speculation, but I also don't think that it's totally off. When you look at players that are, especially these young rookies, everybody wants to talk about how bad the Las Vegas, and I don't mean to turn this into the Vegas Raiders show, but I think it's important. This is all the context. This is why we're talking about it. When you consider all the rookies that Mike Mayock, those 5 years under him and Gruden were the worst. Where are you drafting these kids to? You're literally drafting these young kids to the Sin City, where they're being granted all the money in the world. They're drinking. They're doing. You got the DUIs with Henry Ruggs, tragic. You had Damon Arnett with all types of firearms and saying he was going to kill people on social media. Now you have Leatherwood, who's drafted into a place where, and he didn't have any off the field issues, but he doesn't control where he's drafted. He comes from all this success as a left tackle at one of the most successful program in college football in the hardest division. He's probably, to be fair, and this is not revisionist history, you can go look, probably more of a second round talent. Tevin Jenkins, who we're all familiar with, is very similar in this respect. It was a situation where, hey, they're probably going to be drafted in the back half of the first round, but don't be surprised if they land in the second. And you have this weird scenario, and this is where who knows how much of it is Gruden and how much of it is Mayock, because there was a belief that in that power structure, John Gruden had 51%. Mayock, even though he was the GM, didn't have control, and especially at the top of the draft, when if it's Gruden's team and he maintains control, he's going to be the one saying, I want Leatherwood over a more accomplished player like Christian Darrisaw, who's looking like a great left tackle early on in Minnesota. So some of that's not his fault for landing there, but then it's just the context of understanding. And Vaughn has just a good question: is he better at guard or tackle? Well, this is the issue with his development. He's a left tackle at college, and look, our resident wanker is not here to talk about it, but he certainly would know. You move Penei Sewell, Detroit had the same problem. You're a left tackle in college, but no, you can't play left tackle here because we have Colton Miller, or we have Taylor Decker. So I need you to now play right tackle. And anybody, go ask Duke Manyweather, go ask Brandon Thorne, go ask any offensive lineman, Jeff Schwartz, Mitchell Schwartz. A lot of people, and I don't mean to be so crude, but a lot of people say that and I guess I'll give you the PG rating and then I'll give you the rated R rating. Really, the reality is they say that when you're switching offensive line positions, your footwork has to change, your hand, your punching, all of that. And so it's like wiping your butt. The PG version, it's like wiping your butt with the other hand. The rated R version, it's like masturbating with the other hand. It's not comfortable. It's hard. So the situation is, hey, Alex, you were award-winning left tackle, best program. Yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to play right tackle for us. And then nobody understands this. I get it. I don't blame him. And the guy, there's a guy on YouTube, Sanjeet T, had a great video on this, really going in depth. The Raiders put him at right tackle. He played 2 games there, looked shaky. They didn't tell him that we believe in you, we have confidence in you, let's let you weather the storm. Their guard went down, and they immediately said, "Oh, you suck at tackle. You just go play guard now." And it was actually one of the first. I think it was he had been at guard a little bit, but the change took place full time. Actually, when the Bears went to Vegas that week, Brandon Parker, tackle out of North Carolina A&T, stepped up at right tackle. It was a situation where we would rather play our right tackle 2 than play our guard 3 or 4. And so they moved Leatherwood, forced him into right guard, said, let's play the second right tackle on a week's notice, couple weeks. And now you want to sit there and ask your young kid who's already been in a change, trying to learn the right side, trying to learn right tackle, to now play guard. And you've heard Tevin Jenkins talk about this exact same situation this preseason, having to learn how to operate in a phone booth. Everything is real quick, fast, and tight. So I just have a real problem with the developmental track that the Raiders put him on. And to me, it's not a surprise when you all of a sudden hear reports that he's lost his confidence. He is somewhat disgruntled and feels like the team doesn't give him a fair shake or doesn't believe in him. So I think that the reality is, I think that in some ways just scrap, and we can talk, I don't want to concede it to C-Dub or AC and C-Dub so that you can kind of fill in or ask questions. But to me, I think that there's a lot of negativity surrounding the player, from whether it be Bears fans or outside of it, of why would you take this chance on a guy and pay him $6 million the day that you claim him on the waiver wire. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important to wipe away and strip away that first year and understand the context around it, because I don't think the kid was given a fair shot.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I agree a lot what Jordan says. I mean, it very much sounds like the kid went through a bit of a, Travis Jenkins sort of season like he had to go through, where, they were putting him in a position where he'd not really played very often, which always really sort of, I can never understand why coaches do that. If you get somebody who's played for Alabama, who's been one of the top left tackles, in college, then that's the position you should be having him playing. I mean? So it always baffles me when coaches do that. But also as well, he's got to have the quality to have played for Alabama in the first place at that, as an offensive lineman, because they're one of the top outs in college football. So it'd be interesting to see what they're doing, really. I mean, I think they brought him in for competition with the other guys, but I mean, I don't know sort of what you guys are sort of expecting, how many reps he might get, or what might be his final position on the line. It'd be interesting for your viewpoints on that, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw him, like I said, I watched him in college, and he looked really good at Alabama, but I feel like everyone looks really good at Alabama. I think that comes down to coaching. So I would say I see him more as a guard, just from what I've seen of him in the league. We apparently have really good teachers as coaches, so maybe they can get the best out of him, and who knows what he ends up being. But I'm a big fan of Braxton Jones at left tackle. I like leaving him there. Maybe if we can let Leatherwood just kind of redshirt this year, for lack of a better word. You got Cody Whitehair's contract coming up. Who knows what they're going to do with left guard. Center, you're hoping Lucas Patrick can come back and solidify that. Right guard, I really like what Tevin Jenkins has done there. And even Ryan Poles went on, I think it was Hogan John's podcast. He interviewed with them and basically shut down the rumor mill of Tevin Jenkins. He was like, look, we had this guy in. He was dealing with some things, and then, He's like, I didn't make any calls. All of a sudden, we hear through the media that he was on the trade block. So the media has built this speculation around Tevin Jenkins. And like Jordan said, as far as Larry Borum at right tackle, who knows how they feel about him, because the day that Leatherwood got here, they stuck him there. And I don't know if that's just like a placeholder for them to see where he's at or what. I'm not really sure. I think he's a guard. It'd be a good spot to watch when Cody Whitehair, what happens with him. But in the meantime, let him fight it out with Borum at right tackle. At the very least, iron sharpens iron, and you're going to get the best player out there, I think.
Well, I mean, something that you're talking about, AC, and this is the reality here, is let's just Vaughn, I think, was the one asking, is he a guard or a tackle? Let's just look at the way that the team is built out right now, and something I was advocating, because I was on Twitter at the time going, please, if you do nothing else, Ryan Poles, claim this guy off waivers, just because of what it builds you to. It gives you the financial freedom to say, look, I understand you're paying him $6 million. That's a drop in the bucket of $100 million plus cap next year. Even if they had to pay it to him this year, I believe the Bears had $15 million in cap. You're giving him $6 million up front, fully guaranteed. It doesn't even hurt you too much this year. Even if you wanted to stretch it, it's an average of $2 million a year. That's literally nothing. And you get the freedom to say, if he's good and you develop him, you get the control to go, I have you for the 5th year. So now you technically have him for 4 years if you want to elect to exercise that option. But where does he fit? What is the plan? Something I wanted him for is, look, and this is assuming he didn't get claimed by a waiver. He would have been able to go wherever he wanted. But what I thought was best for Alex is go somewhere where they have a very strict plan for you, where they're going, please come here because of X, Y, and Z. We know how we're going to use you. We know what we're going to do. And he didn't obviously get that. The Bears just said, this is where you are. But I'm hoping, and it sounds like with this staff, everything you've seen from how and this isn't even just the Tevin Jenkins thing. They've somehow turned Tevin Jenkins' position change into a success story. They've somehow turned a 5th round. We can say whatever we want. Scopes is in the chat. He's president of the Braxton Jones Club. Braxton Jones has actually been looking excellent, but I don't think anybody thought that he would be a starting left tackle in the league for any team as a 5th rounder. There's a reason he was available there. And somehow he's risen to the occasion. Sam Mustipher looks like a more competent player. It's something that you're seeing throughout the entire offensive line room. And so that gives me hope that Chris Morgan is going to develop him. And as far as the roles or spots for him, left tackle, I totally agree, AC. Braxton Jones is there. Why would you even mess with that? Right. That's your guy. And here's the thing. They may have selected Leatherwood on the waivers, but Poles picked Braxton Jones specifically. That was his first offensive lineman draft pick. So I don't think he's going anywhere there. Cody Whitehair, to be frank, you'll notice I didn't include him as a guy that's looked sterling and amazing in preseason. He's a guy that I've actually been a little bit underwhelmed by. I don't think he's been not a problem, not a headache, but how does Tevin Jenkins, and I get it, it's a talent thing, but Tevin Jenkins goes to right guard and he's pushing people off the line. He's burying dudes. You'll notice nobody was telling you that about Cody Whitehair. So that already brings an opportunity to say, you're older, you're really here because of the contract, we couldn't get rid of you, and we need bodies. So there's a position where left guard could be an option. And if Alex Leatherwood feels more comfortable on the left, doesn't have to retrain his whole body, that's an option. He's not playing center. We understand that. Not a guy. You've got Lucas Patrick, you've got Mustipher. He's not snapped. Probably not going to happen. Right guard, sure. I won't even rule that out. If Tevin Jenkins were to somehow get injured, or they just decided, hey, Tevin can play tackle now because he's got his confidence back, you could put him at right guard. But I really think that it's telling that it's one practice. But his first day as a Bear, they asked him, where were you playing? And he was lining up at right tackle, which to me, I don't think, as much as we can say that it's just happenstance, I don't believe that this coaching staff ever does anything happenstance. I just don't. I think that there's always a plan. There's always making the best use of somebody's time. So I think that it was very clear of, yes, we're going to try it out. And if it looks bad at right tackle, then I guess we will find out if he can play guard. But I tend to think that this is a move where he's got all the length, all the talent, athletics, everything that you'd want out of your tackle. So can we strip him down to the studs? And this is to your point, AC, of can we not medically, but I guess redshirt him in the sense.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see them tear him down to the studs. Let's build you back from ground zero. Let's instill confidence in you. His issues as a tackle last year and as a guard were all technique based. Really, some of it's footwork, but a lot of it is actual hand placement and punching and getting put out of position. And if you can really strip that down, build confidence, build his technique up, and then unleash him ideally next year, that's best case, because that means that you didn't have a problem with your offensive line this year. Left guard, right tackle, all of those played well enough that you didn't have to rush him in. But he may also, let's not put a ceiling on the kid. He may be in the right situation where Chris Morgan coaches him up. And by week 9, and I like Larry Borum, that's why I'm a little hesitant to say he'd overtake Larry Borum, but there may be a situation by week 9, week 10, Chris Morgan's got him really rebuilt. And the reason I say week 9, week 10 is we've seen Justin Fields, and I don't know how many Bears fans want to talk about this, but Justin Fields had to really be stripped down to the core this offseason because he had a year of bad habits built by Matt Nagy, had to rework his footwork, his timing, his drops, his delivery, we're talking about he's even switching his stance and shotgun from one lead leg to the other. They had to strip him down to nothing and then rebuild it. And we've seen it to where it's not perfect. Justin Fields has a lot of room left to grow. But in the course of offseason starts in March. So in 6 months, you've seen him really take a turnaround, and he had to do a lot more. That's quarterback. Offense, cadence, playbook, chemistry, receivers, the whole deal. Leatherwood theoretically shouldn't have to undergo such a huge developmental change to where if you were to strip him down and build him up with this coaching staff, understanding that Chris Morgan has been able to build so many guys successfully, Mustapher Jenkins, Borum, etc., then you may be able to see a guy like Leatherwood come in week 9 or week 10 and look like a whole new player. Sorry, I know that's long-winded, but I think that's really how I would approach it.
That's what I want. Like, as soon as we signed Leatherwood, Jordan, you were the first person that came to my mind because I know how passionate you are about the trenches, and I'm really glad that I was able to get your long-winded assessment of the situation because I'm not. Sometimes I'm long-winded, but I don't really articulate it as well as you. You know what I'm saying? The way you just broke it down there and kind of put him where his best fit would be, and even talked about the coaching. I think that was perfect. Chris, is there anything else you wanted to put a cherry on this before we move on to some of these other claims or cuts?
Yeah. You just got to think as well that, Pauls was an offensive lineman. So you just got to think that, it's got to be in his DNA to know what to look out for a good player. And I also think as well, just because you get to the NFL, it doesn't mean that a player still can't get better and better and better and improve with better coaching and being in a better situation. And, if it's the better position, if it's more of a natural position for the guy to play. So, I was quite happy we did all that. I'm quite happy we picked him up. I was also just a quick question is, I know at the start of the show, AC, you said the Bears picked up the most players through waivers. What does that sort of mean, and what does that sort of tell you?
Well, it tells me that this roster as a whole was in flux. And it's something that we kind of already knew going into this.
Right.
Was that there was going to be movement on this roster. If anything can tell you that, it's trading Khalil Mack on day one. They weren't planning on trying to plug holes and move forward. They were literally, and they didn't call it a rebuild because they still believe in Fields. But it's kind of a retool, but they're tearing it down to the studs. And those studs are Justin Fields, I believe, Darnell Mooney, looks like Cole Kmet perhaps, because they seem to trust him a lot and giving him a lot of chance, every chance to succeed or fail.
Jalen Johnson, Roquan
right.
Smith.
On defense, you got Johnson and Smith, and I'm trying to think. I guess the draft picks, those would be the studs that they're going to build off of on defense. But that's my biggest thing is if we have the most waiver claims in the entire league, it's because this roster is in such an influx of talent, just changing the guard almost.
Right.
And I would say
I'd
say the next biggest name was Armon Watts, who we picked up from Minnesota. Jordan, again, you've talked about the 3 technique on this defense, and that seems to be the best spot for him to fit. They actually waived Mario Edwards almost to make room for him, I guess you would say, which Greg Gabriel's show might be interesting there because he's talked a lot about Mario Edwards, and I guess how he trusts him to play that 3 technique more than anyone else on the roster. I don't know much about the guy, honestly, before we picked him up. Former 6th round pick. They basically said he was cut because of a scheme fit because Minnesota's switching to a 3-4 scheme over there, and kind of works out for us because we're doing the opposite, going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. So we picked him up, and he's got good size and strength. I think he had like 5 sacks last year or something like that. And I'm really excited to see how he comes in and takes on this D-line and continues growing it. Unfortunately, we lost Tunga because of it as well. Kyrus Tunga got cut, and he was having a good offseason, good camp and stuff. But he's probably – I haven't seen if he's a guy who made it through waivers to get to the practice squad or how that's working out. But it's definitely a big pickup to help our defensive line. We definitely need pass rush. So,
yeah, Tonga didn't get picked up. I mean, when you're waived, you essentially have that one business day to be claimed, and I don't believe anybody claimed him. So he'd be free to come back. But this is just, I mean, something that really it's as sensible as the Minnesota Vikings played a 4-3 defense. What the Bears are now running. They're moving to a 3-4. You need space eaters, big guys, 4 eyes, 5 techs, 0 techs, nose guards. This guy doesn't fit the scheme. Everybody wants to say he was going to be a starter. Yeah, maybe in the same scheme, but just because he was listed there, it comes down to the problem of, no, we need guys like Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson, and they had Michael Pierce, but now he's back in Baltimore. You need big bodies, not a penetrating interior defensive lineman that's looking to get upfield and be disruptive. And so that's why I think you saw him hit the waiver wire, because this isn't just him. The Vikings cut everybody. They cut like multiple top 100 picks from last year, especially in that defense. Chaz Surratt, the brother of Sage. Chaz Surratt out of North Carolina, linebacker, was a top 100 pick, got cut, and now he's on the Jets practice squad because it doesn't fit anymore in that scheme. And so Armon Watts now comes over to a scheme that's more familiar. And then Kyrus Tonga is unfortunately a victim of that transaction. And the reason for it is, as much as I like Tonga, I understand the move. When you talk about it, Mario Edwards is not there. Who's your backup 3 tech? And that's not a shot at Justin Jones, but Justin Jones is a 3rd-round pick. He's been inconsistent as far as he's been injured. He has on and off plays when he's been able to play, and he's been in Los Angeles under Gus Bradley. He was in this same even front attacking one-gap defense. So you're buying yourself insurance on a low-risk opportunity from a guy that was productive with 5 sacks last year. And you're asking him, if Justin Jones were to get hurt or he's kind of cold, can we put you in? And can you be a spark plug for us? And that's what he's capable of doing. Is he's going to be, I don't want to say he's Ogunjobi, but it's the same idea. And so what you're looking for in this defense is you're looking for that 3 tech to charge up field, play the run to the pass, but they are just trying to bust through the backfield and create mayhem in whatever way possible. And I think that Armon Watts is explosive enough to do that, where that was where you're subbing out a Tonga, who's much more of a nose tackle in a 3-4 or a 1 technique, where his job is to hold up 2 blockers and then ask a Justin Jones to come in, or a Roquan Smith as the will to come in and clean up on the backside of the play. And I think all you're doing is saying, okay, we're going to send off a 1 technique in Tonga because we have Mike Pennell and who's the other nose tackle that they have? Oh, Angelo Blackson, that they're probably going to play there. And then we will just sit there and take this opportunity on a guy who's Tonga is. I like Tonga, but he hadn't been productive. Good player for a 7th-round pick.
Right.
But the opportunity to go get Armon Watts, who's actually productive last year.
Mm-hmm.
There's little, and goes to the Leatherwood point. This goes to Armon Watts, and I'll speak a little bit to it, AC, with your questions about maybe it was Chris who was saying, like, what do we think about this constant movement of shifting the roster? I think it's totally necessary. AC, you put it well. They're not necessarily rebuilding because they have these few core tenets of Fields and Kmet and all these other players. But the bottom of the roster needs talent. There's a reason why when they're waiving Tonga and Snowden and LaCale London and trying to think of some of the other guys that were cut, guess what? LaCale London's not playing on an NFL roster right now. Neither is Charles Snowden. Neither is Tonga. Mm-hmm. These are all guys. I mean, Bo Pete Keys. These players that they cut didn't get picked up on a waiver or after the fact. So you need to churn this roster over to try and find real talent to fill the bottom of it. And I love the moves to say, okay, look, let's try to sub in a productive Armon Watts in exchange for a Tonga. Let's go ahead and try to inherit an Amir Smith-Marsette from Iowa from the Vikings and see if he can make magic with Fields. And we'll go ahead and move off of, Tajay Sharp's on IR, but guys of that ilk. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
What
did you think of this move, Chris?
Sorry, AC, I was being very unprofessional there, wasn't I? I agree, man. I mean, it just feels like we're sort of leveling up the bottom of the roster from, low round picks and maybe some low free agencies, what we've grasped over the last sort of couple of years. And we're slowly building up the whole quality of the squad. And obviously that's going to inject more competition for places. And hopefully it's going to rise the quality of the team. So we get, obviously the end results is to win more games than that we won last year. So I can see the logic completely what the GM and the coaches are doing. Really, they're sort of getting rid of all that extra, the extra weight, the excess baggage, and then getting us lean and getting us at a higher level in quality players so we can compete better.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely trying to raise the floor of the roster. And which is what you want to do as GM. You want the best possible players, regardless of your ties to them. Although I know when the first roster came out, almost all of his draft picks made the roster, other than Kramer, who's on IR. I guess
that's right. Yeah,
so he's at least he hasn't given up on anybody a month into the season, which I guess is probably a good thing, that you don't have an indecisive GM who makes moves without he makes moves, thoughtful moves. He doesn't just, pull levers and get this guy in here. Yeah, that's fine. Move on from that guy. One of the biggest criticisms I've heard from this offseason with my work at Mental Dimes, if you guys want to check out my work, I work with mentaldimes.com. I'm the lead NFL writer over there, but I have a show every Wednesday that I do with my guy. Excuse me. I was at a football game yesterday, so if my voice cracks in and out, I apologize. But so my guy Corey and I, we do an NFL show every Wednesday, and one of the biggest concerns I hear from outside of Chicago, outside of the ballroom, is the lack of weapons for Justin Fields to help him succeed. We did pick up a wide receiver, also from Minnesota, Amir Smith-Marsette, who is a former Iowa Hawkeye. trying to look for his size. He had a 4.43.
6'1", 185.
Okay, so he's got decent size.
Yeah.
He ran a 4.43, so he's not like a 4.3 guy, but he's got pretty good speed. I don't look for him to be a number 1 or a number 2, but he is another piece that could help Justin Fields continue to ascend to the role of franchise quarterback that we're all hopeful for.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Sorry, Jordan. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think obviously with the wide receiver group, we do have a lot of injuries as well. With Pringles, I always thought they were going to bring an extra body in anyway. But didn't this player? Did he play some like 6 games and then he had like a really big standout game? Is that correct from last season?
He got us pretty good. I think he had 2 touchdowns on the Bears. Like, was it last year?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that. You know, he had like a couple of quiet games and he had like one big standout game through last year. So I just think it's like it's more competition for the wide receiver group, and also it's another body because we are quite lean in numbers of guys which are healthy.
They're dropping like flies.
Yeah, and the season starts starts on Thursday, so it's not like we've got like another month for training camp for players to get ready. We need to get bodies in now. So, yeah, I knew we were going to get a wide receiver. I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about the guy. I'm so impressed that AC managed to say his name. That was a good one, AC. And I just think he's just been brought in just for an extra body and a bit more competition with the wide receiver group.
Yeah, I was able to pronounce his name, but my experience with Chicagoans, I don't know if they'll be able to. My father-in-law's from Chicago. He still doesn't know how to say Trubisky. He's like Trubinsky. You got any thoughts on this signing, Jordan? Or
so I mean, for those that can't say, it's Amir Smith-Marsette. If you don't like that, call him ISM or call him ism. But Iowa Hawkeye, as you said, 6'1", 185, 4.4 speed. Pretty solid route runner. I'm not trying to tell you he's Keenan Allen or Eddie Guy that's really super. He's not Darnell Mooney running routes, Dante Pettis, but pretty good route runner, an electric playmaker, trustable. I mean, you trusted him to return kicks at the college level as well as in the NFL. That was really what he was doing, was returning some kicks last year as the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 for the Vikings, 5th round pick. And the guy I kind of comped him to, and it's funny because I'll pull out a past comp and I'll pull one that just happened this draft season. He reminded me a lot of Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota that just went to the Texans, just got cut from the Bucs. A player that he's much lighter and a little bit more explosive, so that part doesn't – and this is why comps are just to kind of give you a rendition. It's not an imitation directly, but a guy that can play inside and out, a good route runner, finds a way to get open, and then can make some plays after the catch. And I think that this just goes back to the point of, if you have an opportunity to potentially raise the floor of the roster, what is the harm in taking as many swings as you can? If it's Leatherwood, if it's Watts, if it's Weatherford, if it's Amir Smith-Marsette, swing and swing and swing. Because Smith-Marsette is a 5th round pick who is a pretty solid playmaker at Iowa, is probably better than an Isaiah Coulter, is probably better than an Asiba Webster. So take those swings as opposed to elevating those guys up from the practice squad. And then the last thing I'd say is the current comp I had from him, and it's just kind of popped in my head, but I think it's pretty apropos, is a guy that I really was hoping the Bears would have selected at 148 when he was there was Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. And Amir Smith-Marsette is also very similar in that respect. Can play inside, can play outside, is deceptively fast. A lot of people feel like Amir Smith-Marsette was slow. And when you watch him, I see explosiveness, I see speed on the field, and kind of a little bit of a jitterbug, if you will, a spark plug, a guy that can generate some jukes and moves to get extra yards. And I think that is very similar to what Khalil Shakir looks like in Buffalo already, what he did in Boise State. And I guess Khalil Shakir, if I had to give him a little bit of a props to why I like him so much, is he's very physical, even with his size, plays bigger than that. And I don't think Smith-Marsette has that part of the game, but I certainly think that he can be a playmaker for Fields.
Yeah, another thing to look at with speed when you're talking about speed, I've heard Greg Gabriel, to go back to him again, talk about a wide receiver like a Kevin White might run a 4.3 40, but if you have concepts that make them think a lot, so it seems like our concepts under Getsy are kind of simple, but effective. So if you have a guy who's out there thinking a lot, that might turn that 4.3 speed into like a 4.5 speed, and every second helps, especially in this league, the speed that these DBs are now. So I like the pickup. Like I said, I don't think he's going to come in and overtake Darnell Mooney for wide receiver 1 or anything like that. Make no mistake about it. But he's definitely, just like Chris said earlier, we're raising the floor on this roster. And, rising tides raise ships, I think is the saying, or something to that effect.
Rising tides raise all boats.
That's it. That a boy. That's what I'm talking about.
I've never heard that said in my life, AC.
Well, as I'll tell C-Dub, as I'll tell C-Dub, because he understands.
Sorry, Jordan.
No, this language. We're just blagging it over here, Chris Watts. We're ducking it till we fuck it. We're so we're blagging.
Yeah. Throwing shit at the wall and see if it sticks, right? That's an old school AC saying.
Yeah, man. I mean, basically, you're just talking about my whole adult life is the blag.
So for AC, who's probably like, "What the hell are they talking about?" Blagging is bullshitting, but in London English, it's you're a bullshitter. No, you're a blagger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I've made my I've made my podcasting career on the art of blagging, I guess.
Yeah. You did a good job, mate. You've always sounded like you know what you're on about.
Hey, at least you say it with confidence. You just hope.
Hey, that's all I do, mate. That's all I do when I talk to you guys.
So we'll move on to another guy that I'm I only saw a few highlights of this guy and read his his preseason statistics, but it's linebacker Sterling Weatherford. He is a converted safety that we plucked from the Colts, and apparently Chris Ballard was not happy that guy did not make it through waivers to get back to his practice squad. So that's another feather in the cap for old Poles over there, and I like the way he fits this defense coming from the Colts system. I'm not sure if they'll play him inside or outside, but he's a speedy linebacker. He ran a 4.5. He's a tackling machine. I saw someone put up tape of him on Twitter, and the way he just fills the gap and closes space on ball carriers was really well done from what I saw. He's at the very least he's a special teams guy. Running a 4-3 defense, you're going to have extra linebackers on your special teams, which is linebackers and safeties, I feel like, are very important on special teams because they are quick and tackling in space is a big thing. So I really like this pickup. I'm not sure exactly where he fits or if they've came out and said, yes, he's going to be a Mike or he's going to be a Will or a Sam. But I really like the pickup and again, raising the floor of this roster. I guess I'm going to continue to say this in this show because that's what all these moves did. I feel like they had a tryout period through the preseason, and they felt like these guys were better, so they're bringing them in and sending those guys out the door and turning over this roster in Ryan Poles' vision. What do you think, Jordan? I'll let you go first, and then we'll talk to Chris about it. And
yeah, Weatherford's a very interesting prospect, guy that I liked because, I mean, anybody that watched us earlier in the summer when it was just AC and C-Dub and myself is Kyle Hamilton was my number one prospect in the draft. I love the kid. And I love what that build is and that safety. Now, I mean, something that a lot of people have complained about is Kyle Hamilton doesn't look good in the open field and space. What are they going to do with him? Sterling Weatherford, by all accounts, is that same type of player, measurables, testing, things of that sort. And they've decided you don't have long speed. We can't have you at 4.5, 4.6 at safety. So let's just move you in that big 6'3", 225 body down into the box. And you can be a dime backer. You can play a little bit of nickel against bigger tight ends. You can fill in at – and let me be very clear. I am not calling him Brian Urlacher. I don't know if anybody will ever be Brian Urlacher. But it's very interesting in that same respect that he's a college safety who's 6'4", 220-ish. I think he's 6'3", but it's close. And then he has to transition to linebacker in a system that really benefited Brian Urlacher. I could see a player like him, not like that's what I'm saying. I'm not even telling you the production is going to be Urlacher, but a player like him having a role and having some bigger success than you would expect from a guy of his pedigree because of the body type, because of the instinctive nature of his play. He's very instinctive. I mean, AC, you were talking about that Twitter clip you saw of him fitting the run. Understands how to operate in space, understands how to play in traffic in the box, understands how to read plays, is very instinctive. That comes from being a safety when the entire field is in front of you and you have to quickly dissect what's going on. I think that he could be your middle Tampa 2 runner. I think that when you're in dime and you want an athletic body that can tackle, he can play there. He could probably play Sam. I don't know if I'd necessarily put him there, but I think that certainly going to be a gunner on special teams. And then you look at him, and I think his position could potentially be a Mike on specialized situations and potentially a Sam if for some reason you wanted to go light. The thing there is I don't want to make it sound like he's incapable of playing Sam, but traditionally your Sam is supposed to be a hulking run fitter. And he can fit the run, but we're talking about he's a safety transitioning down to around 230, probably hopefully getting up to 240 as a linebacker. But you typically want these big brick shit houses a la Joe Thomas, who's now on the practice squad. I'm thinking of some other – Hunter Hillenmeyer was a Sam. Right. You go down the list of these big backers that fit the run, and they're the ones eating up blocks so that Roquan and the Mike can chase it down from the backside with their speed and clean it up.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris, if you got anything to say on this signing.
Yeah, I mean the main sort of positive things I sort of thinking about is that he's Paul's has already coached the guy, so it's that continuity as well where Paul's knows what this guy can bring to the game, and it'd be quite interesting to see him on the field with Brisker. I think because I think Brisker's going to play in the box quite a bit, so I think he's there for a bit of a scheme fit with Paul's defense, but. Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of I think like any sort of positive continuity, I'm always up for that because, especially in NFL where things chop and change so much with rosters, that can only be a benefit for the player and the coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they probably scouted this guy going into the draft and liked what they saw, so they were like, they tagged him as a guy that if he gets cut, that's a guy we're going to go after. I also, before we move on from linebacker, I'm really happy to see that Jack Sanborn made this roster. I think he came in the preseason with something to prove, and he proved it. Tackling machine, getting turnovers. I'm really excited to see him continue to ascend and get better each week. I'm just really glad they didn't because I feel like Jack Sanborn would have been our version of this Sterling Weatherford. When I first saw him week one, I texted Aldo. I was like, wow, this Sanborn's flying around. And he was like, yeah, I think he might be a practice squad guy. And I was like, I don't think he's getting through waivers, bud, the way he's playing. And then he just continued to play good and play well. And I'm definitely glad that we got both those guys in our linebacker room. They got a lot to learn from. Hopefully Roquan is taking them in, showing them, this is how we watch tape. This is how we prepare. At the very least, these guys are learning how to be NFL linebackers from experienced NFL linebackers, and they'll just continue to grow and get better in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd finally say with Weatherford is let's also not forget that Ryan Poles has a relationship with Chris Ballard going back to his time in Kansas City, and then the direct fit. Eberflus and all of his staff came from that. They haven't changed the defense up. Actually, what they've been trying to do and build continuity there in Indianapolis is they actually brought in Gus Bradley as another guy that runs an even front, 4 down, 4-3 defense, cover 3, a lot of single high. Now, of course, Eberflus switches it up more than that, but the direct fit and understanding of that guy there comes from your relationship with Chris Ballard, who's a great talent identifier and evaluator. And then coming to a situation where, look, he's already playing in a 4-3 all of summer. This isn't going to change a lot for him coming over into our system, and it's a fit.
Yeah, then we'll move on with some of these other signings. Trevon Wesco from the New York Jets is a blocking tight end, fullback, hybrid type player. I feel like we're going to see a lot of running the ball this year. Running the ball,
yeah, I do.
Setting up play action, obviously, getting fields out on rollouts. And in those type of schemes, you definitely need as many blockers as you can get. So I like the pickup. I don't know how coveted he was. I haven't looked to see what any of his preseason statistics were or anything like that. So I don't have a clue about this guy other than he's a big blocking tight end, honestly. Do you have any information on him, Jordan? Or
Yeah, so it was coming out and as soon as I say this, I forget the school he went to, but he was coming out and was around a 5th or 6th round pick projection. As you said, a blocking guy. I actually think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. I'm not telling you he's Darren Waller, but he can move a little bit. You don't play tight end and you don't stick on the NFL and have as many waiver claims as he was the guy that had the most waiver claims in the entire cut procedure. If you don't move a little bit, what I think he fits best at is we all know what this offense looked like. In a perfect world, you would almost just replicate whatever Shanahan's doing in San Francisco and put it here. Now, that's a different story of whether or not it's going to look like that, but the same concepts. You're going to be playing a lot of heavy personnel, 12, 13, 22 personnel, things of that sort, where you may sit there and go, okay, we're going to have Blasingame as our fullback. We've got to have Komet. Komet's a good blocker, but I wouldn't tell you he's dominating people with the blocking. And they look like they're going to use him as a receiver. Ryan Griffin could probably get down a little bit too, but who's really going to be the heavy body pusher that gets displacement in the run game? And that's what Wesco can do. Is Wesco can be that guy that J-Rock puts up a good, he used that extra tackle. It's not quite that, but if you remember Bradley Sowell was a guy that was a tackle that they tried to commit or change over to a tight end. It's that similar role where can we get this big guy that moves people and he can leak out and be a little safety valve outlet for Justin Fields. And I think that that's really going to be his role.
Definitely sounds good. You got anything on this, Chris, or are we ready to move on?
I think we're ready to move on, mate. I'm like you, see, I know very little about the guy, but just for what Jordan says, I think it's just another extra cog in the wheel, isn't it? I mean, have we still got a fullback on the roster? We have, haven't we? So we've still got the fullback. So I mean, I think Komet's going to be used quite spread out quite a lot this year. So, but also, if we are going to run the ball, we do need that thumping, blocking tight end. So see what he does, mate. See what he does, and like Jordan says, he must be a decent athlete to get all them waiver requests. It could be. It's like we've been saying all this program. It's just bringing up that level of the squad up again. So Yeah, I'll be.
I'm not sure what you said there, Chris. You were kind of skipping out. We'll move on. We also signed another defense.
You know me, man. You know me, mate. I think we probably would have bit more bollocks anyway. So don't worry about that.
Bollocks, wanker, duck it or fuck it. We're on a roll.
Yeah, we got all kinds of.
Well, I've actually got a new one. I've got a new word for you. It's tosser. So I'm going to try and fit in the word tosser somehow into the conversation today, if not next week. So that's my new word of the week for you. Yeah,
okay.
It's tosser, which is a lot like wire.
A tosser to me sounds like a
tosser.
badass
Tosser,
lineman.
Oh yeah.
So we'll move on. We signed Kingsley Jonathan, a defensive end from Buffalo. Former undrafted free agent with pretty good size. He's 6'4", 260. With the Bills signing, Von Miller and Shaq Lawson to their defensive linemen, he was just kind of an odd man out as an undrafted free agent. He kind of had the deck stacked against him to begin with. I don't know much about him either, honestly. Maybe he's a guy who we just brought in for depth. I know Eberflus talked about, I think when he first came in, about having 8 or 9 rotational pieces along the defensive line. Maybe he's one of those guys. Maybe he's going to fight with Dominic Robinson for, depth at that position. I'm assuming he's defensive end at 6'4". With that weight, I don't see him being on the inside, but that's just my opinion. I literally know nothing about this guy other than they picked up that he was kind of recruited. I see it a lot at Kentucky, guys that are recruited over, especially with the one and dones in our basketball team. You can have a great player, but you like this other player better, and they come in and just sometimes talent just overtakes hard work. You know what I mean? And I feel like that was the case with him in Buffalo. Do you have anything on him, Jordan? Or
I have 2 little factoids because I'm honest about it. I didn't watch a player very much. I don't watch a lot of Syracuse football. But I do know that he was essentially the B rusher on the Syracuse squad. Syracuse had a defensive end that was taken either this year or last, forgetting the name, that was the primary player. This was just the guy opposite of him. And then the second little factoid about him is that, and this is where I think Sean McDermott, Brandon Bean are good talent evaluators. That's why they had him there as their UDFA class. But what just a little Google search will tell you, he was the number 1 overall pick in the CFL draft. So not that the CFL all of a sudden compares to the NFL, but clearly they thought that he was the best player they could have grabbed in a draft. And so certainly it seems like the athletic talent's there. They're probably betting that if we can coach him up, he may be a diamond in the rough that we can uncover. That's about all I know about him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Syracuse, I want to give a shout out to Badge, our guy Badge. He's a big Syracuse fan. They played Louisville yesterday. His college season is here, and they beat the crap out of the Louisville Cardinals, which is it's always L's down over here. I hate Louisville, always will. So definitely shout out to my man Badge, and shout out to the Syracuse Orangemen for taking care of business in the ACC yesterday.
Okay.
You got anything, Chris? Or?
Not really, mate. I'm a bit like you. I don't really know much about the guy. Obviously, he's been brought in for a bit more competition on the offensive ends. I mean, do you think he's been brought in to sort of compete against 99? Is it Gibson, who sort of ended up playing like the full game last week?
Oh, I don't think so. I think Gibson's a bona fide starter. I think he's going to be a guy that we're looking in a year. I think he's in the last year of his contract, if not next year. Right. So Gibson's going to be playing for that contract, and he's a guy I'm rooting for as a former 5th round pick out of Tampa that just works his ass off get on the field and continue to ascend. I mean, he took Khalil Mack's spot last year when Khalil went on IR, and to me earned the right for them to look into trading Mack. So Gibson's definitely a guy that I'm rooting for, and hope he gets that extension and continues to play for the Bears. So we got one more guy on here that I have on this list, and it's Josh Blackwell, slot corner. He's bounced around the NFL trying to find a home after being undrafted last year. He's cheaper than Duke Shelley, and that's kind of the spot where he's going to be taking over, I believe. He's got a lot to prove to try and make this roster. And let's be honest, if you've looked at the injury report, we are hurting at corner. We have a bunch of guys out. We had Tavon Young, the guy we signed, goes on IR. He's going to miss the year. I think he went on IR before it was just the 4-game IR. So he's going to be out the year. We've got Kyler Gordon's missed a ton of practices and stuff. Jalen Johnson's the only one you can point to and say that's definitely that's the dude. So more competition they bring in, the better. And I don't know much about this guy, but I mean, we need bodies at that position, and great corners you're not going to find on the waiver wire, regardless of where that, because in today's NFL, you've got your guys that are getting paid. When we saw this with the Roquan thing, our defensive ends, corners, maybe a safety if they're like an Eddie Jackson was when he got paid, like Derwin James is, and those type of players. Those are the type of guys that are getting money in this league. So you're not going to see a lot of people give up on a cheap option at cornerback unless a guy like this maybe slips through the cracks. You know anything about him, Jordan, or are you in the same boat with me? Just kind of
same boat as you. I don't watch a lot of Duke ball. I know he played football at Duke. I know he's around 6 foot, 180-ish. But if there's one thing I know about him, I know he's an athlete. I know that obviously Howie Roseman likes his athletes, and it's a pretty decent talent evaluator by all accounts. So was getting some traction in Philadelphia. He may have been cut, but then brought back as a guy that this is an example. If you're in UDFA and they cut you, they're bringing you back. At least they want to still see more of you. So just think it's Poles once again swinging on an athlete and seeing if they can get something out of it. Don't know too much more other than that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much.
Maybe he's the guy we'll see on special teams. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much the same as you guys on this player. We all sound like the worst pundits in the world because we don't know who they are. But like you say, it's the art of blagging, isn't it? That's what it is, Jordan. The art of the blag. Mm-hmm. But I think he's just another body to bring in because, like you say, we got so many injuries in that position at the moment that. Just to get a bit of depth for that group is something what we need. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out for the guy. I'm not expecting too much, but like you say, it's like you said, AC, you're not going to get the top quality cornerbacks through the waivers. So he's definitely being brought in as another body, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And AC Adam was in the chat. He said he's fast as fuck. So he's
right.
He's an athlete. Maybe we'll see on special teams if he's a good tackler. Just like Jordan said it perfectly, just taking a swing on an athlete to see if he can fit and see if he can fill a need. Because as I said, we're hurting at corner. We got a ton of injuries, a ton of guys on that injury report. Before we move on from the roster, was there any cuts that you guys saw that kind of surprised you when they first happened? I don't want to take any names, but there was really only one name that stood out to me. I'll let you go first, Jordan, and then Chris, was anybody that got cut that you were surprised by, and then I'll try to put a button on it.
I'm going to take a guess and say I know that your name is going to be Mario Edwards. And Yeah, because that's everybody saying it. I'll give a little bit of context there. I certainly agree. I think that was one I was a little bit shocked by because he's been disruptive. He's been a disruptive player in the past. He's had, I mean, I'll never forget. He was the guy that got penalized and maybe fined for sticking his finger. Didn't poke Aaron Rodgers, but kind of like pointed his finger inside his face mask, and all of a sudden it was a big deal. But clearly, when you look back at that situation with him being cut, it's very clearly one thing or the other. He was either not playing because he knew he had a roster spot. The coaches said, "We got a role for you. You're good. You don't need to work. You're established." Or, which I think was what we were all assuming, he's good. He's not playing because he's got his role. He's safe. Or you're not playing because you don't buy in. You're not a culture fit. We don't believe in you. We don't have a role for you. You're hurt. Things of that sort were a great example, and this kind of expands to it. Is I thought that Thomas Graham showed enough last year, and it sounded like he had enough of a rapport built with this coaching staff in the offseason that even with the hamstring injury that's kept him out the entire preseason, that he would maybe be kept over a guy like Jalen Jones, who had a few times where he got cooked this preseason. And what you're seeing here is that I think goes to the Mario Edwards point, and I'll kind of use my one selection for, I guess I'll give you kind of a half. Thomas Graham and Charles Snowden would have been the two guys I was a little bummed to see go. And when I think about those individuals, Snowden played, but Graham, what it says is if you're not playing in the preseason, you don't have any merit to stay on this roster. And that's, I think, what happened to Mario Edwards. That's what happened to Thomas Graham. That's what happened to Tavon Young is a little bit of an interesting scenario because now he's on IR. But if you didn't play in the preseason, I'm not keeping you on the roster. You did absolutely nothing to show me why you deserve to be here. And I think that's what happened to Mario Edwards.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Chris.
I mean, sorry, mate. Yeah, I mean, Mario Edwards was the main one for me, just due to like it would just, it would just brought a bit of experience because the centre of the defensive line to me is still a bit of a worry. And I thought, it was consistent, like Jordan said. It was a good disruptor. I actually thought Jordan were going to say that the guy tried to put his finger up Aaron Rodgers' ass. That's what you were going to say. Not inside his helmet. I thought you were going to say he tried to put his finger up his arsehole or something. But yeah, that's the only one. What really surprised me, AC, is Mario Edwards. A lot of them, I never thought they were going to get to the final 53. What we cut. So yeah, that was the main one for me.
Yeah, that was the biggest one that I saw. I did want to throw J-Rock's comment up here that he was loafing in practice and complaining his legs hurt. Maybe he can go play for the Chicago White Sox because their legs are all hurt for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on out there on the south side. But I don't know. I just had to make a little dig. But yeah, I was surprised that just because he has so much experience. But this roster was one of the oldest, and it feels like Poles is turning it into one of the youngest in a short period of time. So these guys that have been in the league for a long time and are kind of hanging on with their past experience. Poles seems to be trying to get younger guys in there with maybe close to the same talent level. And another thing to think about is the hits philosophy. I know they talked to, I think, Jalen Johnson about it, and he was like, at first I thought it was just kind of something corny, but once I bought in, and we've seen it through the preseason, granted it's preseason, but we've seen guys fly into the ball, getting turnovers, gang tackling, big things, even as far because they're I know on 670 The Score they were like, how does this apply to the offensive side? When you see offensive linemen finishing tackles, you see Tevin Jenkins, as Jordan has pointed out, burying guys, getting to that next level. That's how the hits philosophy applies to the offense. And I feel like with a younger roster and guys who have something to prove, they're going to buy into that hits philosophy more than a guy that's been in the league for 10, 15 years and is just like, been around, or even if they've been with one organization for a long time. I feel like these younger guys are going to buy into that more because they're fresh out of college. This sounds a lot like a college-y thing, the Hits philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people shat on it when it was first said, but as a military guy, Bobby Bombs can attest to this as well. We have acronyms for everything in the military. So it kind of, I liked it, but it seemed kind of, I don't know the word, like they shat all over it on all Chicago radio, which I feel like that's what they do, which I guess it works because they get listeners. They get me to tune in, even though they're shitting all over my team every week. But I definitely think that had something to do with it, that just the age of Mario Edwards. And again, like Jordan said, he's been known for a 15-yard penalty here or there, and I don't see how that's going to fly with Eberflus. I think he'd be riding the bench, and that wouldn't go well for anybody. So, and Jordan also touched on Thomas Graham III, or is it Jr.? Thomas Graham Jr. With what we just talked about, the amount of corners that we have hurt, I definitely thought Thomas Graham was going to make the roster. Maybe they put him on IR to miss the first 4 weeks. But they just straight up cut him. I don't know. I mean, we only really saw him. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm struggling over here. We really only saw him against Minnesota that I can remember. I mean, he played Seattle. He got beat once and then did a pretty good job against DK that week. But I don't know. I guess this new staff, this new regime, they just, once they don't see anything out of you, they just don't want you taking up that roster spot while they wait for you to come back just to see if anything happens. And I don't believe he was picked up from anybody as far as waivers. So he could be a guy that they call a month from now or a month and a half and say, hey, you want to come back and show us what you got. If you're still in good shape, if you're ready to go, and move on from there. So, I mean, I don't know. Those were the only two cuts that like really hit me like, oh, crap. This is a guy that I thought had a spot on this roster that isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's, I say we could just wrap this thing up. I mean, we talked about cuts. We talked about waiver wire pickups. We'll be back next Sunday. Hopefully the whole crew will be here to break down Bears 49ers. And we'll go from there, but we'll do shout outs and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll put a bow on this thing. Chris, I'll let you go first. Any shout outs or anything that you want to talk about?
Obviously, the first shout out is to you boys. It's a highlight of my week, mate, coming on this show and chatting Bears football with you fellas and telling you. And also, as well, is just think by Thursday, the NFL is back. It's fucking back, baby. You know what I mean? I could sort of smell it in the air. You know what I mean? I woke up early this morning and it looked like quite an autumny sort of morning. It was quite grey and dank. I mean, we are in England. We do have a lot of grey and dank days, but it just felt a bit autumny. You know what I mean? I can smell the NFL coming, baby. So can't wait for next Sunday's show because it's all real now. There's no pre-season anymore. There's no training camp. It's the real fucking deal, man. So bring on next week. And also thanks to everybody in the chat. And I'm just getting very excited. It feels like, the night before Christmas. That's how it feels. I feel like I'm about 10-year-old, waiting for my favourite Star Wars present to be bought for me for Christmas. So I'm quite giddy. But it's always a joy being with you guys, man. It's awesome. So, next week, mate, I can't wait.
For sure. And you go ahead and pick it up, Jordan, and give your shout-outs. Anything else that you wanted to close out with?
Sure. As always, AC, Chris Watts, you guys are jewels to this network. I appreciate you having me on and love talking Bears football with you guys on Sunday mornings at the crack of dawn here in California. midday over there in Leeds where Chris is, and
Yeah, it's awesome.
damn near noon where you are, AC. But I love talking football with you guys, talking Bears football, and
Appreciate it.
you guys let me just run stupid long rants about ridiculous shit, talking about the Vikings and the Raiders, but we have a good time, and you get to learn new sayings. We learned about tosser today, wanker last week. Yeah, tosser. We're doing duck it or fuck it apparently. So it's always fun. Maybe Aldo can cut that, and he can all of a sudden tie some media saying negative things, going, "This is them ducking it or fucking it." And then of course, Barflies. You all are excellent. It never ceases to amaze me. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday before college or Saturday before college football, Sunday early morning. It doesn't matter. I was doing shows at 8 p.m. California time going until 2 a.m. East Coast, and there's still people hanging out. So you Barflies are always excellent, and we appreciate it. And as per usual, and I know AC's going to get to it, but like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all that stuff to help Aldo. And I'm not going to stop saying it. God bless you, Aldo. I hope that everything's okay. You know, he dealt with a loss recently, and I know that I speak for myself, but also AC, Chris Watts, KB, everybody that's not here at the moment, that we stand in solidarity with you, Aldo, and we hope that you're okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Man, absolutely, brother. I mean, yeah, I wanted to first do the Aldo. I mean, you said it perfectly, Jordan. We're all praying for him. If you haven't heard, Barflies, well, I don't even know if Aldo wants me to put this out.
He put it on social media. I think he's
okay.
I think you'll be all right.
Aldo's mother was in hospice, and she did pass in her sleep the other day. So if you are a praying guy, or even just someone who sends good vibes, whatever you believe in, send those over to Aldo. Let him know we're thinking about him. We definitely got a lot of love for Aldo here at the Barfly Tailgate show, because a lot of us, we started out as fans, you know, and we came on here, and he gave us a chance, and I feel like we have a good show. We have good camaraderie. We have good chemistry, and Aldo, the Godfather, kind of put that all together. So I'll forever be grateful for Aldo as a friend, and as almost like the grandpa I didn't have. You know, Aldo's my guy. We met in Cleveland and hung out, and if you ever get a chance to meet Aldo, he's the same person in life as he is. This isn't a gimmick. He's the same person in real life as he is on the show. Just a genuinely great person who will give you the shirt off his back if you need one, man. So definitely shout out to Aldo and his family. I can remember back to when Phil and Shane were still with the bar room. They had "What Does Aldo's Mother Say?" So that's the only reference I have of Aldo's mom. She was kind of a feisty woman that didn't take crap from anybody. So we got a lot of love for her as well. And so definitely shout out to Aldo. I wanted to start with him because, you know, it's a tough time, man. And it's a roller coaster of emotions because he just became a grandfather himself. And then to lose his mother in such a short time, that's a tough, you know, life. You go through ups and downs, and and right now could definitely be a down, but we definitely got a lot of love for you, Aldo, and I hope you know you're not alone in this. If you're going through anything, you can always reach out to any of us. I'm sure all these other guys would say the same, anyone on the network. Shout out to you guys for coming on here with me this week. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, definitely. Shout out to y'all coming on here with me this week. Shout out to Bobby out there on the boat. He's out there. I'm just picturing him with like a captain's hat on, you know, an old Navy hat.
I do.
Out there just boating and living his best life before football
Captain
season
Milligan.
smacks him in the face next week. And shout out to KB. He sent me a text and was saying that his daughter was having a tough time this morning, so he's on daddy duty this morning. Shout out to KB for sure. Shout out to all the Barflies in the chat. Just like Jordan said, man, it never fails, and it's insane to see no matter what time, we could go live at 3 a.m. and there'd be barflies in the chat. It's incredible, and I love it. Even you, Don Burr, deep down inside, you are a barfly because you are here every week. Shout out, man, Tooch, my guy over here. He said, big win for Kentucky. Absolutely. I was out there last night. That's why my voice is dang near gone. The Kentucky Wildcats started out with a big win. A bit of a rebuild at Kentucky because we lost 3 offensive linemen to the NFL, which is a different thing in Kentucky. We're not used to trying to figure it out. It's not Georgia or Alabama where they're used to it every week or every year. So we had some growing pains, but I will always be out there at Kroger Field every week, cheering on my guys. It was an electric win. We had some true freshmen out there making some plays that they did not look like true freshmen. It was pretty awesome to see, honestly. But I'm going to get off my Kentucky soapbox on that. I just wanted to slide that in there before we moved on, obviously. But stay tuned to the Ballroom Radio Network here on YouTube for all of our shows. I know tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Excuse me. Shout out to Joe Mandel. We will be doing our annual Ballroom Network fantasy draft. I'll be on there. I know Joe's going to be on there. I think Zim might be able to hop in on there, but it's always fun. We hear a lot of analysis from the guys who know what they're talking about as far as fantasy football. I basically just flush my money down the toilet every year. That's what I do. But I try to go on there and be entertaining and talk about some of the picks that I know a little bit about. So we'll be doing that tonight. So definitely Tooch says he'll be in there. So, he knows what he's talking about too. Hop in the chat. Let us, go live with us tonight. And moving forward, every Sunday you'll catch the Barfly Tailgate show right here on the Ballroom Network. Prior to us going live at 10 a.m. Eastern time, we will have the Goon Fantasy Football Show, and Uncle Mike's going to do a betting show every Sunday. So he's going to come on and tell you where to put your money to try and make a little extra money. I mean, we could all use a couple extra dollars. So Uncle Mike will come on here and tell you where to put that money every Sunday morning to make a couple extra dollars, and that'll be your Sunday lineup. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. John Buffon came back this week. We have, I believe it was Buffon 55 this week. I got the notification. I haven't been able to check it out yet, but so definitely shout out to John Buffon. We love everything he does with the Ballroom Radio Network. He kills it, man. He's up there in Pittsburgh behind enemy lines and rocking his navy blue and orange with pride. I'm trying to think. You got Crosstown Crosstalk where they talk Cubs and Sox. The Sox season is still looking up. They have a shot to sneak into the playoffs. We'll see what they do. So you can definitely check out my guys down at the South Burbs Hitmen as they talk White Sox with Tony La Russa's illness, the strange thing that just popped up all of a sudden. That's definitely, I'll let them cover that because I just kind of see it from afar. But anything Chicago sports, we got you covered right here in the Ballroom Radio Network. But we're going to get out of here for now, and I will definitely see y'all next week, and we'll end this with a big old bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down.